You're listening to an episode of the Break the Cycle podcast on the SVTV network. Aashish Mehrotra is my colleague, my friend, and one of the people who, and I haven't told him this yet, one of the people who I look up to as someone who's very inspiring, someone who lives their truth to the fullest. Aashish identifies as bisexual and is a polyamorist. We're going to dive deep into the idea of what those two things mean. He's going to explain how one is an identity and one is a lifestyle choice. The reason why I wanted to do this is because of my own journey into my relationships, which up until this point, I made plenty of mistakes and did things I'm not particularly proud of. But having accepted that, I feel comfortable in speaking my truth. And that's something that I've looked at Aashish for as a reference, as inspiration. I hope you enjoyed the episode, as always, and feel free to reach out to me for if you have anything to say about this episode. I'd be happy to have a discussion. I'd be happy to incorporate your feedback for the next couple of episodes as well. Thank you. Enjoy. Mr. Mehrotra.
Yes, Mr. Aadhar.
Acha, we're not going with Malhotra anymore.
No, we're going with Mr. Aadhar.
Okay. Is that because of the card joke?
Yes, it is.
Damn you. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, maybe.
Damn, I had to fly, I had to really push you to fly down for this.
Yes, you did. The business class tickets that you sent me were pretty generous, so I couldn't turn down the offer.
Oh, wait, thank you. I'm glad they reached you.
And thank you for putting me up at such a swanky hotel.
Yeah.
And thank you for the people you sent over. But that's great. It's great to be here.
All right, man. So I'm going to kick it off by straight away asking you to kind of introduce yourself to the listeners, a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Oh, a little bit. Well, I like the sound of my own voice, so it'll be a little bit more than a little bit.
Go for it.
So, my name is Aashish Mehrotra. I am currently the Chief Video Officer for MSL India, right? I am a colleague and a friend to Aadhar. We've known each other for
about 3 years.
3 years now. My background basically, when it comes to family and what I used to do was Bollywood. My father was an old-time film producer, so I have very solid Bollywood roots. And as you can see from, you can't see well. Aadhar
you can't see my face, but there's a look of disdain. I get that a lot of people like and listen to Bollywood. That's just not me. I'm sorry, but yeah.
Well, it's in my roots. That's there. And from Bollywood, when I either couldn't hack it or it wasn't for me, to put it in other words, I shifted to digital media, where I started producing content for a company called Culture Machine. If you know of any YouTube channels called Being Indian, Whack, Epified, etc. Well, I was somewhere behind the scenes on some small part of those shows. And from there I've come to MSL and I'm pretty much enjoying life since then.
My man's been rocking it on video.
Yes, now this was me professionally. Now me personally...
Yeah, that's what we're more interested in,
Me personally, you'll have to probe a little bit more. Well, I can say that I am into fitness the same way Aadhar is. Maybe not as crazy and dedicated, but I do enjoy fitness. I am a certified fitness instructor. And on my free time, I keep on sharing out gyan as much as I can on the internet.
Yeah. My man lives on the internet.
I do. I am addicted to Twitter and I'm addicted to Instagram for two reasons. One, Twitter, so I can just talk crap, and Instagram because I like the look of my own face and I'm a narcissist.
You guys can't see this is probably tweeting right now.
I have to check my tweets.
Dude, put that down. Okay. So, sorry. Damn. Well, yeah. So, Aashish does not know this, but I'm about to kind of really go at it with him right now about living your truth.
Living my truth.
Which brings me to the same personal introduction that you gave, except we're going to go a little deeper.
Of course. That's what she said.
Right. I'm going to try and not edit that out.
He said whatever floats your boat.
Yeah. See, that's what I mean. But yeah, coming to Twitter and Instagram, you've been I mean, the way we kind of started talking online specifically was because I saw you post a lot of content, not just around mental health, but around sexuality, specifically bisexuality.
Yes.
And what really got me interested, and in fact really helped me understand something which was not something that I was very open to, pun intended,
Yes.
was open relationships.
Correct. So, well, these are two different identities, right? One is an identity, a sexual identity. I'm bisexual, which means I'm attracted to two genders. That is the female gender and the male gender. There is pansexuality, and like it's all very murky. But right now, I identify as bisexual. Now, polyamory, and what I am is I am a polyamorist. Is and how it's different from open, I'll get into a little bit later. But I am in a polyamorous marriage. I am married, but I do have another partner who's my girlfriend at the moment, and we are all poly as well, which means that we are open to other relationships in the time being. How does this differ from open relationships, you'll ask?
Yes, please.
The difference between open relationships and polyamory are the strings. In polyamory, there are more strings attached. I am very much committed to my girlfriend, as any other partner would be. She is my partner. I'm saying girlfriend, so people out there can understand it. But I do call her my partner. She's as equally important as she is to my first partner, which is my wife currently. We have. Well, there's no system as such, but there is no. Okay, let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
I have two partners, right, and they're equally important, and they run parallel relationships in my life, right? One is not more important than the other. One is not less important than the other, and there are more strings attached because I'm committed to two people in the same way as possible. Where it comes to open relationships, is that you can have a primary partner as well. Well, this is in the course. Everybody's definition is different, but this is how I have come across it. You have a primary partner, or you yourself are just open. You don't want that many strings attached. You don't want labels as such. You are having intimate relationships and hanging out with the people that you are, and you're not putting a label on it as such. You're not calling each other a partner. There are less strings involved, right? Whereas in polyamory, there is a lot more care that's taken into relationship and what you call a polycule, right? For example, me, my wife, and my partner, right? We all hang out together. Right. We're friends. It's a safe space as such. Right. In open relationships, it may not be the case. It's just like I don't ask, you don't tell. You can do whatever you need to in relationships, or I can know about the person, right? But it's not exactly a setup where you're supporting each other in ups and downs, and there are less strings involved.
All right. Wouldn't that constitute? I mean, the second part. Yeah. So. Open relationships have been sort of like a puzzle.
Yes, it's very open relationships is exactly what it means, right? It's open-ended at the end of it. There's no definition for it as such, according to me, and at least that's what I'm talking of only in the Indian context. The context in other countries is a lot more evolved, so it can be different. But in the Indian context, it's like you'll see these guys and bros going, I'm just in an open relationship. I'm not looking for anything, I'm just,
basically sleeping around.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they use it as an excuse for mostly. Yes, obviously there are, just like me and other people, there are people who genuinely do not like being tied down and do respectfully have open relationships with other people, which is different. Then there are other people who are married who are very happy with their marriage life, but they're not happy maybe physical intimacy wise, or they want to experience a lot more in their life. They believe this is one life. So then they have sexual partners outside of their marriage. But the primary partnership is still there when it comes to that marriage.
All right.
Now, here where it gets a little tricky and where you have to create your own definition. There are other polyamory people, right, who identify as poly, but will have a very open relationship, but say that they're polyamory. So, like I said, that's why the definitions are so open in India's context. People don't quite grasp it, but to make it easier and to sound less, I guess, in the Indian context, because people get accused of it a lot, less slutty. Right, is to say that, we're polyamorous, but actually polyamory means a lot more strings attached than open-ended relationships are.
Right. Now, this is interesting to me specifically because, and this is probably the part where I'm going to be okay, I am going to confess to a lot of shit that I've done in life.
Don't worry, it's not like we're recording.
Oh, yeah, sure. No, so the reason why I wanted to get into this specifically with you is because, so I do not identify as a polyamorous.
Correct.
I am not in a polyamorous relationship. In fact, most of my relationships have been monogamous. However, I have committed the cardinal sin of pretty much cheating on every single relationship I've had.
Correct.
How I worked that issue is a story for later. However, the relationship conundrum is something that has interested me.
Correct.
Because for someone who claims, or for someone who is, say, monogamous, or is, I don't know if there's another word for...
Non-monogamous?
No. There's polyamory, there's...
Non-monogamy.
Okay, non-monogamy. So for someone who is monogamous specifically, for them to end up in a situation like this, where ultimately you are kind of drifting towards other people, but you haven't been able to, say, create a safe space to, identify that you're not really monogamous, it's a story you've told yourself, or actually kind of take the plunge of tying down. How do you kind of get to that distinction if there is one?
See, first you gotta, according to me, and it did come to me because before I was polyamorous, obviously to give you a little bit more depth, I was in a 10-year relationship.
Okay.
I was in a relationship, very heavily monogamous, did not cheat, very, obviously, just like any 10-year relationship, ups and downs, etc. From the age of 17 to 27.
Right.
Then after that, I did go through the whole existential crisis. What am I exactly, right? Do I fuck around? Do I find another relationship to settle down? So obviously, I also made many mistakes to get to an identity I thought I was most comfortable with.
Right.
And I always say polyamory, non-monogamy, all of these are just lifestyle choices, right? They are not identities.
Right.
They are choices you make to make sure that you're happy in the mental space you are and the safe space you are. Now, firstly, I had to answer, and I'm supposing if you do go to therapy and you do introspect later on, you'll have to ask yourself the simple question. Am I a non-monogamous being?
Right.
Or am I commitment phobic? Right? Or am I being afraid of being tied down and always going on a self-destruct phase? Right?
Okay.
That is something that I needed to answer. I like the smile on Ada's face.
I mean, it's like a light bulb hitting me constantly, but yeah, please continue. Sorry.
So once you answer these questions and you introspect, is it just the fact that I don't want to be committed because I'm commitment phobic, or is it because this is just the way my personality or my choices will make me happy, right? Just being adrift and having these multiple relationships around and not having any strings attached, or someone like me who realized that I've got a lot of love to give, right? And I do love more strings attached. I want exactly like a polycule. I want a couple of more relationships so we become like one big happy family, right?
Right.
So that's a different thing. That's more responsibility because imagine all four of them going through a bad phase, right? We have to support each other. It becomes a polycule at that sense. In some portions it'll be so difficult because now my two partners get along really well. What if I have a third partner who doesn't get along with with the other two partners?
Oh boy.
What if I have a fourth partner who gets along with the other three partners but came later, but the third partner that came in doesn't get along with any of them? There are a lot of things, but we have to support each other in the same way. The complicated ways with these relationships can work. That's more strings attached, right? So that means I identified with myself that I'm not commitment phobic.
Right.
I'm actually the opposite. Right?
Okay.
I can be committed to the max.
Right.
What I was missing from my life was the transparency of it all. That I don't want to lie. Right? And that's what lying and then fucking around used to always give me anxiety. So I realized that that's not who I am.
Yeah.
Right? You need to realize that why, if again this is going into a therapy session, but why were you cheating in the first place? Was it just because of sexual intimacy problems, or were you self-destructing, or were you commitment phobic? Once you understand and find out what makes you happy when it comes to you as a person, then you'll realize what choice you need to make on the lifestyle that you choose in the future.
Sure.
And that's where it basically centers on how you want to basically choose a lifestyle. Because again, and I want to say this to a lot of, and I get the opportunity for these platforms very little.
Oh, please go ahead.
That being polyamorous isn't an identity; it's a lifestyle choice.
Ultimately, it's a choice.
Yes. You
I
want-
really need to hammer that in with a lot of people. It's that a choice is ultimately a personal one.
Yes.
Having said that, though, I think that because my purpose for doing this particular episode was because while I have now reached that stage where I do identify as monogamous, for a lot of people, that confusion and that taboo around the subject of polyamory still exists. And I've seen Twitter wars.
Yes.
I've seen your Twitter wars.
Yes.
Specifically.
See, now my problem with Twitter was, right?
Yeah.
When I am not out there, well, there are extremes everywhere. Where I am not out there, okay, I don't have the entitlement or the right, right, to ask you questions about your monogamy.
Right.
I don't owe it to you to answer questions about my polyamory.
Absolutely.
Yet, because it's something that is not known, right, two things happen.
Right.
Fear of the unknown,
Yeah.
right, because it threatens, according to other people, their known and their known, right? And secondly, the entitlement to ask more questions. And another third one, a lot of people think it of as a kink, because I'm bisexual, I have partners who may or may not be bisexual, etc. Threesome karega kya? तो लोग तो बहुत threesome करते होंगे. Like I came out to a family member, right? And their first thing was, they were not, you must be having a lot of threesomes. I was like, no, that's not how polyamory works. We're not one big orgy, right?
Yeah.
We are separate parallel relationships at that. Their friends is a different whole story altogether. But they became friends, right? But those two relationships are completely different. And if you can't turn in and off and don't have the maturity to that, that's fine. I don't want you to, I'm not out there saying that monogamy is bad, polyamory is the way to be. I want to basically normalize the fact that I'm poly and people not look at my other partners because I'm married as the other woman.
Right.
Or the other man, right?
Yeah.
Just give them equal respect. And that is why I have put it on my bio, right? And I come out to people as poly. And it always says, so that's how you identify. No, that's a lifestyle choice. I'm just trying to normalize it right now. My bisexuality is not choice. That is how I identify. That is how I'm wired. That people need to understand.
Right.
And in both ways, I think it's important to be out there and proud, simply because I am privileged enough to be an upper caste Savarna male who is rich and able to have a position in a prestigious company, right? And I can speak for the people and at least normalize it enough, right? And take the hits for the people who can't.
Right. No, I'm glad because part of the another thing that I really appreciate is the fact that you're able to kind of live your truth.
Yes.
Which brings me to the next statement that I'm going to make, and I might just get a lot of flack for it, but we've spoken about it at length earlier, that your truth is not an absolute truth, which is fact.
Yeah.
Your truth is personal.
Yes.
Having said that, though, normally I would ask you the question, what all cycles have you broken? You've kind of answered all of that, but I do want to get into how did you get to that stage? For starters, let's go with your bisexuality. How did that identification kind of come across? And the reason why I ask is because for a lot of people, either they are afraid to identify, at least the kind of.
I think two things, right? One is Twitter.
Right.
To be honest, and I know Twitter is a cesspool for most. For me, I found a lot of support.
Okay.
Right. I found a lot of people from the queer queer community. I found a lot of people living their truth.
Right.
And I realized that I need to find my truth, because I obviously knew that I'm attracted to other men. And so because of that support system, and having that support system is important no matter where you find it. I found it on Twitter, right? Once you have that support system and which can give you the courage to come out, that's what one helps. And the second thing is Idris Elba.
Idris Elba?
Yes.
Big Driss.
Idris.
No, I know. I call him that.
So these two factors is what made me come out as
Explain
bisexual.
Idris Elba.
Well, I love him. So
We all do.
Yes.
We all do.
And yeah, so that's basically why I broke that cycle and made sure that I live my truth at that point. And because I found that support online on Twitter, I make sure that I'm out and proud on all social media, so that somewhere, some down the line, if there's a boy or a girl, or she or they, or however they identify, takes a little bit of courage from my story somehow and gets inspired to live their truth, I'm perfectly happy with that.
I'm glad, man. I'm going to kind of approach another subject here on how did you approach polyamory, say with your wife, with your partner,
So it was a
with
mutual
your family?
thing, to be honest. So when it came to polyamory, to be honest, me and my wife were drunk at BSC one time.
For those of you who don't know, that's Bar Stock Exchange in Bombay.
And so basically,
This is advertising, but anyway.
so basically we kind of knew that inherently who we were as people, and we both realized that okay, we know that we're not monogamous, that we will stray, and we hated the fact that we feel guilty about being attracted to other people as well. And then when we were getting drunk and we were just talking about, listen, this suddenly this wedding or this marriage that we got into took maybe too quickly, seems like, but we do love each other, right?
Right.
But seems like we're jailed somehow. How do we fix that? Now, we had no idea what open relationships are, right? There's some, because we've been poly for years now. I think it's been 3 or 4 years, odd years, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we had, and the social media and everything else was very different back then as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
so
3 years
nobody
ago was a whole different
yeah.
ballgame, yeah.
So when it came to talking about polyamory and other open relationships, so we had no idea what open relationships actually were. I didn't even know what the word polyamory exactly was, right? We came up with a system of our truth at that time that, listen, if it happens, it's okay.
Yeah.
Just don't tell me. That's how it started, right? I'm okay with it. If I find out, we're not going to get divorced, we're not going to do anything. It's fine if you, like a boy and something happens, etc. I just don't want to know about it, right? And that's how it started, which evolved into, hey, I met someone, right? They're very interesting, but I don't think it's just a, fucking thing, right? To then going into, okay, just don't tell me the name, which went into, okay, this is the person, which then went into, listen, I want to discuss this person with you, because at the end of it, we became best friends. Right?
Yeah.
So it just evolved into something. Then we met other people and we told people, you know what, we're not exactly monogamous, and, oh, so you're poly. And we're like, I don't know what that means. So I was like, no, I'm poly. I remember this person, and she's like, I'm poly. And I was like, is that something, abbreviation? So then he explained it to me, and then we went and we researched on wherever we could find, like when it came to Reddit mostly, and other places where we could find out more about polyamory. And then we found, then Twitter started being a lot more open about it, and we found groups. I went to a polyamory group in Bangalore. I met like-minded people. I understood from there how different backgrounds they came from. It was just one meeting. But then when we came to Bombay, we met a whole bunch of people who were also discovering more about how they're polyamory and stuff like that. Obviously, it also became a shit show at one point, because everybody just started sleeping with everyone. Because it was a shit. Because at the end of it, you do want to explore your polyamory side, but you can do that with only people who are polyamory, right? But it just ends up in this incestuous pool.
Oh boy!
But everybody goes through that. Trust me. When you will try to.
But that's like I think that holds true for any kind of exploration, right? It's going to be messy.
It's going to be messy.
It's going to be messy
because unlike monogamy, polyamory, there's no rule book to it. Right?
Yeah, no one wrote the manual for that one.
No one wrote the manual for that one. So everybody was just trying to figure that out themselves out. It's not an easy road. There were lots of fights. There were lots of misunderstandings. There were lots of friendships lost. I'm still blocked by a lot of people on Twitter.
For being poly?
No, but for fucking up, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I'm poly doesn't mean that I'm holier than thou. I fucked up.
Of course, yeah.
Right. So
yeah. Oh, no, I kind of understand that one really well.
Yeah. So people listening to this, please understand this. Just because we're saying we're poly, we're trying to normalize it, doesn't mean that we're good at it. Right? It really doesn't mean that we're good at it. We've got training wheels on, and we're trying to figure out our way through it as well.
It's like an alternate sort of approach, in a way.
Exactly.
But I think that's got its own set of issues, doesn't it?
It does. But that's the thing, right? I'm going to say enjoy the issues, but if you think it's worth it, having those relationships in your life, then poly doesn't seem that big. Those problems don't feel that bad.
Yeah. What about if you don't mind me asking, what about your family? How do they take it?
Oh, well.
Because again, this is given the country that we live in, it's a taboo
I was
subject.
okay. So I won't tell you who in my family, but mostly a single big set of family. They were more concerned about my bisexuality. One,
Yeah.
and secondly, when it came to poly or whatever they understood of it, they're like, "Are you leaving Shweta?"
Oh.
I was like, I'll tell you one thing. I'm not getting divorced. Does that work for you? I'm never getting divorced, right? Because I love her. She's my soulmate, right?
Yeah.
So it's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, cool, right? So
Wow.
it's because at the end of it, they're patriarchal. They are people who just know monogamy, and they're like, log kya kahenge, right? As long as I'm happy with my wife and I'm seen with my wife in social occasions, etc., in their mind, they're okay with it, right? They don't understand it, but as long as I'm happy and it's all consensual,
Yeah.
they're okay with it, and as long as they're not being forced to partake in it, I think, in the sense that, oh, meet my partner and you have to be friendly with her and treat her just like a daughter, etc., which they won't understand, and it's unfair to, at least at this moment, to push your lifestyle choices on someone else, unless
course.
until it's something like, again, if you're LGBTQIA, if that's how you identify, pushing that, you're not pushing that on your family, you're coming out to and living your truth. Polyamory and open relationships are a lifestyle choice that can't be forced on your family members to accept in the ways that other things can be, in my opinion, or at least in my family, right?
Yeah.
As long as they understand and don't try to hamper my life, that's perfectly fine. Just the same way I shouldn't try to hamper theirs.
Right. No, I'm completely on board with that. It makes perfect sense, and I'm glad you kind of touched upon that subject. Which brings me to the next one.
Yes.
Which is, I mean, considering that you answered most of my questions before I even asked them, I'm kind of running out of words here. I'm
Like I said, I
oh.
love the sound of my own voice, so I am going to speak a lot.
Right. So, for anyone who's kind of okay, let's start with the identity aspect first. For anyone who's living in the fear, and I'm glad that a lot of people aren't now.
Yeah.
I do kind of. Okay, again, I do kind of call myself quite ignorant. I did in my last podcast, which was about patriarchy. The reason why I call myself ignorant is because I have just begun to kind of delve into these conversations, which seem to be important.
Yeah, I would rephrase that and say you're not ignorant, you're privileged.
I am privileged,
So
yes.
the privileged people are, under that does come ignorance, but you're privileged to not see or know about the struggles of the other
True,
stuff.
absolutely true.
Privileged bastard. You can edit that one out.
No, I'm not going to, because I think it's important for everyone to hear the fact that with privilege, while it's a double sword.
Yeah.
Right? There will come some advantages to you. There will come some advantages for you that you can use to help others. But there's also a flip side, and that's an ugly side of privilege.
I don't think so.
That's
I think,
in my opinion.
In your opinion?
Yeah, in my opinion.
In my opinion, privilege has no ugly side, and that's the problem.
What?
You're privileged, right?
Yeah.
Being ignorant and correcting that is a choice you can make.
Yes.
So there's no ugly side to that. You can, if I choose right now to ignore, right, and stay ignorant,
Right.
it will make no difference to my stature in society, my income level, my family, or anything I do in life, right? Whereas a person who is not privileged doesn't have that kind of
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when you say an ugly side, again, that ugly side can, if you do think there is an ugly side.
My ugly side would be you lack the empathy to
That's the thing. There's no empathy. There's no because you've been just because you have been trained or have certain things in your life, right? You can't imagine what it's like to not have it. Right? That doesn't mean you have less empathy, right? That just means you have less understanding, and just because you choose to ignore it because it doesn't affect your life. Again, that's just the survival of the fittest. It doesn't mean that your empathy levels are low, right? It just means that you choose to stay ignorant and choose to stick to your privilege.
Right.
Will make you an asshole, but won't make you empathy. Again, is a different whole. We can have a podcast on that later.
Oh yeah, I mean, I am going to get into that one, but that kind of brings me to an interesting question, which I don't think is for this podcast, but I'll ask it anyway. Are you saying then, because you mentioned you're talking about choice on one end, right?
Yes.
But I also, and this is something that I notice, that when it comes to choice, we have kind of reached at least an unconscious choice of we have none. Let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
We have subconsciously kind of told ourselves or sold ourselves the bullshit, which is where I say we've made that subconscious choice of claiming that we have no choice.
In what aspect? Because I, as a privileged person, I have many choices, right? As a privileged upper caste, and I keep on saying this,
Yes.
upper caste male who's from a very affluent background
Right.
and has got many doors open for him. I have a million choices. Like I can get up tomorrow, change my field, go to a different career,
Yeah.
live my life, and I'll still have those doors open for me. I have many choices in life when it comes to identity, sexual identity, being poly in an Indian community, working the way I am, jumping jobs. I have a million and one choices, and that's where the privilege comes from.
Right.
When you say that we don't have a choice, that is only for the people who don't have the privilege for that. They have less choices.
Right.
Whereas a privileged person has many choices.
I'm glad you called that out. I'm glad you called that out. Yeah. Now, going back on track, though, I do want to ask you about how does someone who's currently facing that conundrum, and I call it a conundrum because I think owning your truth is a challenge that a lot of people face. Anything that you can kind of tell us how to get there?
See, just don't be an asshole, right? Now, that it may sound very weird, right? But that's what I keep on telling people on Twitter as well, right? If somebody's going through something and has choice to voice it on their platform, when their Twitter is their platform, don't just call it a public platform. It's their handle, it's their platform, it's choosing to say something or something like that. Just don't be an asshole. When you're sending out the tweet and you're talking to someone, look at that tweet and say, hey, does this make me look like an asshole? If it makes you look like an asshole, don't do it.
Yeah, run it by a couple of filters.
Yeah, no, just look at it and just say, does this make me look like an asshole? If you can't tell the difference, then you're not going to change.
Right.
And you can't. There's no self-reflection that you can get from a sanghi or from a person who doesn't understand how them being Brahmin has that privilege, etc. And when Brahmins themselves call themselves, attacked. Or that they're under attack or they're the less privileged ones. It's weird, right? That you can't see it for yourself. You're going on a self-defense fucking mechanism. Just don't be an asshole. You're upper caste, you're privileged, you have doors open for you. Accept that.
Right.
And don't be an asshole. Right? Try to be empathetic to the other people who don't have those kind of choices right now. That's all.
But, okay, so the reason why I asked this is while don't be an asshole is perfect advice, and I give it to a lot of people too, including myself multiple times, it's a little difficult for someone to kind of reach that level of awareness, and this is coming from someone who actually had to get there. I had to hit rock bottom to get to that level of awareness of, is this making me look like an asshole?
Yeah.
So to avoid that place of hitting bottom, which can happen for a lot of people. And in some cases, unfortunately, that awareness may still not come.
Yeah.
How do you get people to that level where at least that basic state of asking that question of yourself, am I being an asshole? How do you do that?
That, unfortunately, according to me, will only come from circumstances where you will hit rock bottom or something that shouldn't be the responsibility of others who are not assholes, but is at the moment. And I think it may change if we keep the fight strong, is calling out the assholes.
Right.
The more you call out the assholes and keep having and tag teaming in and out when you don't have the mental energy, tag teaming someone else who can fight the fight against an asshole and why he's being an asshole. Once collectively we start doing that and stop taking bullshit and stop keeping quiet, right? Because out of 100 people, suppose on my timeline, right? There are around 10 assholes who amplify it, 5 people fighting against it, and the rest are watching it and they're silent.
Right.
Those are the bigger assholes. If you see something that is assholery happening, call it out.
Yeah.
Right? Those 5 people who are fighting against those 10 people need your support, not your silence.
Right.
So, unless until the assholes don't see that, oh my God, like 100 people are telling me something is up, somehow, somewhere down the line, hopefully, again, optimistic and unicorn that I am, they may introspect.
Right.
But telling an asshole to introspect, telling an asshole to introspect right now and figure out their own shit and not be an asshole will never happen because they don't see themselves as the asshole. So hitting rock bottom is one, and secondly, the public
Being called
there,
out is the other.
being called out is the other.
Right. No, I'm glad. I'm glad I'm having this conversation with you. I mean, I feel that it's important, but I mean, given you and me, we can probably run this for a couple of hours.
Yes.
Right. So that was one thing.
Yes.
Right. How did they approach the subject of? Because this was more identifying the inner self.
Yes.
In a way. Just a continuation to that. When it comes to relationships, and we see a lot of people struggling, and weirdly enough, there have been manuals that have been created on it now.
Yeah. Yes.
However, how do you kind of, and this is just me taking like an example out of your life and your relationships with Shweta and, I'm sorry, I don't know.
Tanisha.
How do you guys, how would you rather tell someone who comes up to you with a question of, I don't get the relationships.
Hey,
And I don't mean your
you.
relation. And I don't mean your relationship. I mean any relationship that they are kind of struggling
that
with.
way.
That way. Because it's none of their business when it comes to your relationship.
Exactly. How do you relationship, right?
How do you relationship? Well done, Aashish.
How do you relationship? How does this work?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that's a question I can answer, to be honest. And that's not, it may seem like a cop-out, but it's not. It's simply because some people either need therapy, right?
Okay.
Either need to understand themselves enough, need to draw healthy boundaries in a relationship and can't.
And communicate.
And they can't. Until they don't fix those inner workings of themselves, they can't share themselves with someone else because they don't exactly know what they're sharing.
Right.
So once you understand yourself and are happy with yourself, that's the only time you can be in a relationship with someone else to portray that same energy out there.
Thanks, man. It all starts with you.
Yes. Look inwards. Find your inner peace. Find your kung fu panda. Pandaji.
Seriously?
Nah.
Seriously?
I mean,
You want to say that in front of me now? I mean, come on, Aashish. I'm not even editing this one out. Damn. Okay. My last question, and this is only if you're comfortable sharing.
Yes.
If anyone wants to reach out to you, talk to you,
Yes.
where can they find you? And can they approach you?
2 places. Twitter.com/Borktales, that is BORKTALES, and the same with Instagram, same handle, Borktales. You can approach me on those handles. I'm more than happy to answer your questions, or not about my relationships, but any advice I can give to you guys, or if someone just needs to talk about their own identity crisis and how they need a support group, I can start helping them out and finding those support groups near wherever they stay. And sometimes I can just be an ear, and I will do this like free of charge. It's just something like at the end of it, we're one big community when it comes to people, and it takes a village. So that's why I'm doing it, if anybody's wondering why.
Well, thanks, man. This was supposed to be my last question, but thanks to your handles, I've had to ask another one.
Yes.
Why Borktales?
So
What does that even mean?
I have a beautiful, beautiful angel called Lucifer. He's he's a dog.
Do you see the irony in that?
Yes. He's my son. He's my dog. He's my pupper. And I basically started communicating what I needed to, using photographs of him and me conversing. Obviously, they were my inner thoughts, but I used him as a character to simplify things like consent, simplify things of any trending topics that are going on, or news articles that are going on, or just telling assholes not to be assholes. It's some borderlines on being very sometimes preachy, sometimes immature, but it's still something fun that I love doing. And I started calling it Borktales. And the way my life actually doesn't revolve around polyamory, doesn't revolve around my family, doesn't revolve around bisexuality or my work. It revolves around my son, Lucifer. So that's why I do it. My handles are Borktales, because we bork a lot.
Yeah. Fun fact, Ashish, I listen to him a lot more than I listen to you.
I think that's true with everyone.
Man, thank you so much for coming on
Thank
the
you very
show.
much, man.
This has been beautiful, and I am gonna call you again.
Yes.
You have no option but to comply. Those
Of course.
tickets will be sent.
Thank you.
People will be sent to.
Thank you.
If I have to come down to Bombay, well, I mean, I did. I had to come to Bombay to bring you here. But thank you so much for coming on the show.
Most welcome.
Guys, if you have any questions, preferably not about his relationship. In fact, preferably you have no choice but not to ask.
Just don't be an asshole.
Just don't be an asshole. Don't be an asshole. Parting words from my friend Aashish. As always, I hope this helped. I hope this kind of starts conversations about lifestyle choices and identities, specifically in gender. My last episode was with Anika on patriarchy. We're really hoping to kind of break these two cycles of just hiding away from what your truth is and really kind of coming out and claiming your space. While I am no expert, I think that any way that I can add to this conversation is great. So this is my contribution to that. As always, your feedback is very much appreciated and welcome. So please, if you have anything to say, I'm available on Instagram through my name, Aadhar Mehrotra. Or you can email me, aadharmalhotra@gmail.com. And parting words from Aashish, don't be an asshole. Until next time, guys. See ya.